Now that we understand how to create our ideal customer profile, and we know that the objective of our second interaction is to qualify our prospect, we're going to get into the specifics of what actually happens in this meeting. And I call this the meeting flow. So the second interaction, you're going to usually want to have this meeting be no more than a total of 15 to 20 minutes. So let's break down what actually happens in this 15 or 20 minutes in your second interaction. So the first 5 minutes of this meeting is kind of what I would call, the hi, how are yous, or building rapport. So building rapport can be a lot of things, but usually it's trying to find some kind of common ground with your prospective customer to see kind of what likes and interests they have, or what kind of family or friends they currently have that might be in alignment with your family and friends, and just some way to create a little bit of common ground. But again, this is going to be a very short period of time, because typically you're going to build rapport with somebody as you have more and more interactions with them. But on this very first scheduled interaction, it can be sometimes useful to spend the first couple of minutes talking about some basic things that are going on in your life, or asking them how they're doing, and just making sure that you guys both feel comfortable in that very first interaction. But you don't want to spend too much time on it, because rapport is an important part of your sales process, but it's definitely not going to win you the deal. Now, the next part of the meeting is going to be probably the bulk of the meeting, and this is going to be about 10 minutes, and this is going to be your qualifying / compare them to your ideal customer target. Now what I've found is you can a lot of times be very upfront with a prospective customer that you want to figure out if they're going to be a potential good fit for your business, that you're very particular about the types of businesses you work with, and by being very specific and having that conversation with your prospective customer up front, it almost gives you a sense of exclusivity or scarcity, which can be a very powerful emotional trigger for people. And so when you start to kind of turn the tables and you tell them, I'm interested to find out if you're going to be a good fit for me, and I have some questions I'd like to run you through to see if you're going to be a good fit for my business. So this middle chunk is going to be basically where you score your prospect. So I like to score my prospect against that ideal customer target. Now you don't want to get too carried away, because this is only 10 minutes, and typically you're going to have time to ask, maybe 6 or 7 questions to your prospective customer. You won't want to really go into too much detail unless you find out that they're really not lining up with a certain area of your ideal customer target, and then you can maybe ask some clarifying questions. But the whole purpose of this is to figure out how close to your center target they are. So if you have 1 or 2 questions, 3 at the most, from each of those criteria sections, it'll be really helpful for you, and you can literally just draw a target on your a piece of paper or a notepad, and as you're talking to the customer, just kind of move your pen in as they start to continue to match the criteria that you've predefined for who you want to work with. So then you're going to get to a place in this conversation where you're going to make a realization. Either they're going to be somebody that you don't want to work with, or they're going to be somebody that you do want to work with. So depending on what's going on in your life, they're either going to be a great fit for your ideal customer, or maybe it doesn't even matter because you don't have any business going on right now anyways, and you're just going to take whatever business you can get. So as you're moving through your qualification script, you're going to make a realization or a decision of whether or not you want to work with this person or not. Now, it's hard to say after only 15 minutes of talking to somebody of whether or not you're actually going to get the business or not, but you do want to make a conscious choice of yes or no at this point in your project of whether or not you think this person's going to be a time waster, or whether or not you're going to be an actual good fit for this prospect. Now, once you've come to the conclusion, either no or yes, your next objective is to get off the phone. So that might sound kind of strange, but in both cases, either you don't want to work with them anymore, you're going to want to get off the phone because you want to stop wasting time. Or if you've decided that you do want to work with them, you're going to still want to get off the phone and stop wasting time, and you're going to want to move to your next scheduled interaction. So if it ends up being a yes, you want to get off the phone, but before you do, you want to schedule your next interaction. So this is a really important step because, like I said, the interaction process is a series of interactions you have with somebody of increasing amounts of time on every single interaction. So our very first interaction that was unscheduled, the cold call, we're going to keep that to 5 or 10 minutes at most. And now this first scheduled interaction, we're going to keep to 15 or 20 minutes. And even if it's a yes and you want to continue working with them, don't fall in the trap of ending up talking to somebody for an hour or 2 hours in this interaction. We're trying to build a relationship with somebody, and we know relationships are built with interactions over time. So we want to increase the number of interactions we have before we ever get to proposing business. And so once you've realized that this person, you've qualified them into your ideal customer target, and you want to work with them, it's really important to then schedule your next interaction because you want to start discovery. Now, I find that typically you want to get somebody to agree to do discovery. And discovery is a lot more intense look at their business, at their problems, at their competitors. It's a process that you want to take somebody through. And getting somebody to agree to do a discovery is an important part of this step. And now at this point, to get your next scheduled interaction, you're going to get your customer to actually commit to doing discovery. So what you want to do is get a commitment to discovery. Now, discovery is where the magic happens in the sales process. This is going to be the process where you deep dive and you find a client's specific pains and problems they have in their business or their organization and how your website services can potentially help them to solve that. But you don't want to move from qualifying them into discovery without separating that as a separate interaction. So one of the reasons that we make these all separate and independent interactions is because we want to have clear objectives and agendas for all of our meetings. We don't want to just kind of fly by the seat of our pants and let our meetings go an hour or 2 hours without having the proper preparation time. So like I said, you haven't really done much preparation time for this meeting. And when you start going into discovery, each discovery meeting is going to have a specific amount of prep time that you're going to do prior to going into the meeting. So it's really important that you don't do discovery in this second interaction. So first, you're going to want to thank them for telling you a little bit more information about their business. And then you're going to want to say, it appears your business is potentially a good fit for my business. I work with a lot of companies just like yours, but I need to fully understand your business. So I'd like to schedule a few meetings with you that will allow me to deep dive into your operation. After we do that, if everything goes well and I'm able to solve some real problems in your business, then I'll propose a solution. Then we'll look at an actual proposal, and this whole interaction process typically takes 5 to 6 meetings for a total of X amount of hours. The results are that we'll have a good understanding of what exactly we should do with your project and when we should do it and why we should do it. Does this sound like something you're willing to commit to? So now if you've been selling websites for a little while and you hear me say 5 to 6 interactions of just discovery and proposal presentations, you might get a little bit thrown back because you typically probably don't work like that right now. And part of charging more and closing deals more effectively is going to be to have more interactions and spend more time with the customer on the front side. This process is going to pay dividends to your business over time. You're going to get a lot higher value projects and you're going to start solving some much better, more complicated problems in a business. So after your customer commits to discovery and wants to follow your prospect, at that point, you're going to want to make sure you schedule your next interaction. And you're not going to want to leave the meeting without making sure that meeting is scheduled. Don't say, I'll follow up with you next week with a time that works for both of us. Typically what you want to do is schedule at least that next meeting. Sometimes what I like to do is even schedule 2 or 3 discovery meetings in that initial interaction. So typically this final process is kind of what takes the last 5 minutes. Now sometimes getting this preparation of discovery and scheduling this meeting might only take 30 seconds. And that's why we say this is usually 15 to 20 minutes. You're going to start off building a little bit of rapport, getting into some hardcore qualification stuff and comparing your ideal customer target with this specific business. And then once we decide whether or not we want to work with the person, we're going to want to get them to commit to discovery and schedule our next meeting. At that point, you're going to want to get off the phone as fast as possible.